But you can see that here someone's worked out the idea of what are the goals, what are the objectives, and then what are the end outcomes, the actual specific learning outcomes. You know, I want students to be able to understand research principles and methods. Okay, the goal is that they're actually going to conduct a research project. The objective is that they're going to present those research findings in a particular type of style or format, if you like, report format. And then the actual outcome is that 2,000 word, if you like, formal report that they've handed in that reports on their research. And sometimes when you actually drill it down and you get back to basics, you might find, you know what, this isn't really working for me and it's not working for the students. When you actually try and go backwards and you do a backwards flip, if you like, on this, and you start down this end, you can go back and go, it doesn't really fit in. Doesn't really kind of join the dots, and I think you probably know what I mean. But so you get back to the overarching goal or the learning outcome, and you realise that a 2-hour exam isn't really ensuring that the students have an opportunity to demonstrate learning or evidence of that learning within that type of approach. Student-centred design, that's also very important, and again it's about thinking about what is offering best practice in terms of ensuring that students are at the centre of our decision making in blended learning as well. So you can have obviously the teacher-led instructions, and I think we all agree that part of our mission and our strategic plan here, as I'm aware at Bond, is a personalised and a transformative, learning experience. So we're not suggesting in any stage that we get rid of the face-to-face, that we don't do that personalised one-on-one, face-to-face type of approach here. What we're saying is that in conjunction with that, to complement that, there are other opportunities that we can think about. I'm sorry, I'm racing through these because we did start a little late. Interaction and collaborative learning, obviously, here are some possibilities, and we will get into these in a lot more depth and detail as the course progresses. This is week 1, session 1, so I'm giving you a little wee snapshot, if you like, of some of the possibilities. So you can see some of the ideas that can I guess encourage a more collaborative learning experience for your students, particularly those perhaps who can't attend lectures face-to-face some weeks, who are, back at work and only coming in on face-to-face for every second week or things like that. These sorts of things can offer opportunities for making those connections and still feeling part of that collaborative learning experience. Integration is really important, as we said, so it's making sure that if you decide that you like the sound of some of the tools that we're going to talk to you about in the workshops in the next few weeks, you love the idea of collaborate, the discussion that Libby was talking about, oh, I really want to do that. That's great, but make sure that you think backwards and you think about, well, where's that going to fit in terms of my learning program? Doing something just for the sake of doing it, the students will see through that in a minute. You'll become frustrated. It's a lot of work for not a lot of return. And you'll often find with blended learning that the teachers that embrace all of these sorts of things without putting due thought into why they're doing it and how it fits in, remember the rationale behind why they're doing it, tend to get burned. They're the ones that say, oh yeah, well I tried that, it was rubbish, or the students hated it and it was terrible and I'm never doing anything again. And when you actually dig down into, okay, well why did you choose that particular tool? How did it fit into the learning outcomes that you were trying to achieve? What were you teaching? How had you taught that topic before? Why did you make the choice to use this particular tool? If you can't answer all of those questions, then you shouldn't have embraced, that tool and tried to implement it in the first place. And that links in, of course, into organisation as well. So integration and organisation go hand in hand. You need to make sure that you're really clear about where things fit in to the big picture of your course and how you're delivering your course. If you're offering something as an idea or an option in week 7, why have you put it there? How does that fit in with the activities that you'd put into week 6? How will it fit into the reinforcement that's going to occur in week 8? Does it fit? And if it doesn't and it's not, integrated appropriately, or it doesn't seem to fit in with your organisation, then again, better not to actually put it in there in the first place. It's a less is more sometimes mentality, and again, sometimes with blended learning, we think more is more. And we think the more I have in there and the more, IT I throw in there and the more opportunities I've got for online learning, the better I'm going to look as an educator, or the more engaged my students will be, or the more impressed my dean will be, etc., etc. And of course, we need to move away from thinking about that. So how to get started, and we're almost there. My biggest recommendation to you, and it's come from bitter experience, is to start small. Baby steps, keep it simple. Don't try and be everything to everyone. Don't try and do everything all in one go. Keep it really simple. So focus on the learning processes or the outcomes, and what do you want students to achieve. Consider what the best way you think is to teach those learning processes, and sometimes it may well be it's face-to-face lecture, Sarah, that's it. But I think that's the best way. They need to sit there in a lecture, they need me to transmit that knowledge, and then they need to go away and practice. Or they need to be, working on their public speaking and debate skills one-on-one, and then get together and have a particular, session in small groups. And I've tried that before and it works really well, and the students, grades show that that's working. So if something's working really well, we're not suggesting that you then have to try something else to replace it. As Ron mentioned before, it's not about replacing, it's about enhancing or improving. And then obviously, if you can think of something that works in terms of blended tools or technology that you think can support delivering those learning goals and outcomes, then that's where hopefully we will be able to help you and help develop and implement those sorts of things. So 5 steps in subject redesign, of course, is planning, thinking about what am I trying to achieve here, what do I want my students to learn. Then design, so you design what that is that is the learning activity or the particular tool that you would like them to be using. Develop that, and that's again where we can help you in terms of supporting you in that. You implement, and then you evaluate, and you'll have some wins and you'll hits, and you'll have some misses. You'll have some students who think that it's the best thing since sliced bread and love it, and you'll have some students who are resistant and aren't really into it in the first case, and you've got to keep chipping away at that. Very quickly, I'll flick through that. So how to get started? I think here are some key questions that you could think about, and some takeaways, if you like, from this little session on back to basics. It's, what are you currently doing in your teaching that's face-to-face? Okay, great. What are you offering, if anything, in blended mode at this stage? What's offered in online mode? Maybe just a lecture stream that you do for your presenting your topic, and that's it. And that's okay. Again, it's not about judging you or what you do in any way, shape or form. It's about thinking about, what am I doing currently? How can I make it better? So think about why those decisions were made in the first place. Now, how can you personally get started and where to go from here? I'd like you to start thinking about your particular subject that you teach and how you teach it. Can you come up with 1 or 2 key topics or ideas, areas of concern within the big picture of that subject that present as a challenge, or might give you an opportunity to perhaps look at improvement or enhancement? And think if you can come up with an improvement outcome that you might like to focus on. So again, we're trying to distill the idea of a whole course or subject down into, are there one or two key things that I could focus on as a result of participation in this blended learning workshop that I could take away and try and focus on? And super quick, some examples, and I apologise for the wordiness of it. But okay, student achievement's a real issue for me in the teaching of my topic. This research proposal task, it's just too complicated, and the students continually are lining up at my door, asking me questions. They just don't seem to get it. How am I going to improve that? Increased levels of attainment in a research proposal as well. So you could think about participation in taxation lawsuits, students in the legal principles tutorial seem to again be very needy and are reporting back to their tutor that they're not engaged in that topic. So some ideas you might think of is, oh well, what about if I tried to find a student who's already done that research proposal task and did really well? And I could get them, I can't physically get them because they live in WA now, but I could get them into a Q&A session online where the students could say, oh, now, so how did you approach this? Or how did you work through that? It's not cheating. It's not giving them the answers. It's giving somebody the opportunity in your class to ask a fellow peer about the process of how they approach this research proposal task. And they might have some suggestions for the students. And again, the students perhaps therefore gain some sort of benefit and improvement from the fact that you've integrated this into your course. You create some case studies and scenarios using an online storyboard to make those taxation tutorials concepts a little bit more engaging or interesting. And I only bring this up because one of your law academics has done some really great initial preliminary work on getting to know how to use, animation and storyboarding to create stories. And of course we know that if we can, and it's not necessarily about entertainment, but if we can be more engaging, if we can provide different ways, visualization, audio, and so on, to create a learning experience for our students, that they're much more likely to retain that information far beyond the lecture theatre in the classroom. Or maybe you post, after the lecture, you have a student-led forum, okay, where some lecturer oversight and facilitation occurs, but basically the students are leading that and they're actually helping themselves become better learners by having some take on that expert status of helping their fellow peers understand difficult concepts. They're reinforcing some of the learning that's occurred within your lecture, and you can then monitor their progress and jump in when you need to as a facilitator if there's any key, misinterpretations or misunderstandings, but otherwise you can kind of leave them to it and have that self-directed active learning going on as well. I've gone over time, so very quickly, that's the process again that you need to think about when you're embracing those little baby steps. So think of something you might like to improve. Participation in my tutes in week 4, everyone drops off because they hate the topic. Is it attainment, levels of achievement in a particular assessment item that you have that's an exam that everyone seems to bomb out in? Is it understanding of this really complex concept that you're trying to teach? And students really, really seem to need a lot of help and support post the actual content delivery in understanding that concept. There must be something that you do currently that perhaps we can look at as an opportunity for enhancement or improvement to improve the learning outcomes for your students.